Azure DNS is a hosting service for DNS domains, providing name resolution using Microsoft Azure infrastructure. By hosting your domains in Azure, you can manage your DNS records using the same credentials, APIs, tools, and billing as your other Azure services. Azure DNS doesn't currently support purchasing of domain names. Instead, you can manage DNS records for your domains and integrate with other Azure services seamlessly. DNS, or Domain Name System, is crucial for the functionality of the Internet. It translates human-readable domain names like www.example.com into IP addresses that computers use to identify each other on the network. Without DNS, users would need to remember complex IP addresses to access websites or services. Azure DNS enhances this by providing high availability, fast performance, and seamless integration with other Azure services, ensuring that your applications and services are always reachable. An Azure DNS zone is used to host the DNS records for a particular domain. For example, the domain contoso.com may contain several DNS records such as www.contoso.com and mail.contoso.com. A DNS zone is analogous to a file that contains the DNS records for a domain. Azure DNS allows you to manage DNS zones and records through the Azure Portal, Azure CLI, or Azure PowerShell, providing flexibility and ease of management. To create a DNS zone in Azure, navigate to the Azure Portal and search for DNS zones. Click on Create DNS Zone, then select your subscription and resource group. Enter the name of your DNS zone, e.g. contoso.com, and click Create. Once the DNS zone is created, you can start adding DNS records to it. This process is straightforward and can be done through the Azure Portal, Azure CLI, or Azure PowerShell. DNS records are essential components of a DNS zone. They map domain names to IP addresses or other resources. Common types of DNS records include A. Address records, CNAME, canonical name records, and MX, mail exchange records. In Azure DNS, you can add, update, or delete DNS records using the Azure Portal, Azure CLI, or Azure PowerShell. This flexibility allows you to manage your DNS records efficiently and ensure that your domain names resolve correctly. There are several types of DNS records that you can manage in Azure DNS. A records map a domain name to an IPv4 address. AAA records map a domain name to an IPv6 address. CNAME records map a domain name to another domain name. MX records specify the mail servers for a domain. TXT records can contain arbitrary text data, often used for verification purposes. NS records specify the authoritative name servers for a domain. Understanding these record types is crucial for effective DNS management. Azure CLI is a powerful tool for managing Azure resources, including DNS. To manage DNS zones and records using Azure CLI, you need to install the Azure CLI and sign into your Azure account. You can create a DNS zone using the AZ Network DNS Zone Create command and add DNS records using the AZ Network DNS Record Set commands. Azure CLI provides a scriptable interface, allowing you to automate DNS management tasks and integrate them into your deployment pipelines. Azure PowerShell is another powerful tool for managing Azure resources. To manage DNS zones and records using Azure PowerShell, you need to install the Azure PowerShell module and sign into your Azure account. You can create a DNS zone using the new AZ DNS Zone commandlet and add DNS records using the new AZ DNS Record Set commandlet. Azure PowerShell provides a flexible and scriptable interface, making it easy to automate DNS management tasks and integrate them into your workflows. Azure DNS can be seamlessly integrated with other Azure services, such as Azure Traffic Manager and Azure Content Delivery Network, CDN. Azure Traffic Manager uses DNS to direct client requests to the most appropriate service endpoint based on traffic routing methods. Azure CDN uses DNS to deliver content to users with high availability and performance. By integrating Azure DNS with these services, you can enhance the performance, reliability, and scalability of your applications. Security is a critical aspect of DNS management. Azure DNS provides several features to enhance security, including role-based access control, RBAC, Azure Active Directory, AAD integration, and DNSSEC, DNS Security Extensions support. RBAC allows you to control who can manage your DNS zones and records. AAD integration provides secure authentication and authorization. DNSSEC helps protect against certain types of attacks, such as DNS spoofing. Implementing these security measures ensures the integrity and availability of your DNS infrastructure. Monitoring and troubleshooting are essential for maintaining a healthy DNS infrastructure. Azure provides several tools for monitoring DNS performance and diagnosing issues. Azure Monitor can be used to track DNS query metrics and set up alerts for unusual activity. Network Watcher provides diagnostic tools for network-related issues, including DNS. Additionally, you can use tools like NSLOOKUP and DIG to perform DNS queries and troubleshoot DNS resolution problems. Regular monitoring and proactive troubleshooting help ensure the reliability of your DNS services. To get the most out of Azure DNS, it's important to follow best practices. Use descriptive names for your DNS zones and records to make management easier. Implement RBAC to control access to your DNS resources. Regularly review and update your DNS records to ensure they are accurate and up to date. Use Azure Monitor to track DNS performance and set up alerts for potential issues. Integrate Azure DNS with other Azure services to enhance performance and reliability. By following these best practices, you can ensure a robust and efficient DNS infrastructure. Contoso Limited, a global enterprise, needed a reliable DNS solution to manage its growing number of domains and services. By adopting Azure DNS, Contoso was able to centralize its DNS management, improve performance, and enhance security. They integrated Azure DNS with Azure Traffic Manager to optimize traffic routing and with Azure CDN to improve content delivery. By following best practices and leveraging Azure's monitoring tools, Contoso ensured high availability and reliability for its DNS infrastructure, supporting its global operations effectively. Configuring Azure DNS is a critical aspect of managing virtual networking in Azure. By understanding the importance of DNS, creating and managing DNS zones and records, and integrating with other Azure services, you can ensure a robust and efficient DNS infrastructure. Remember to follow best practices and leverage Azure's tools for monitoring and security. As a next step, consider exploring advanced DNS features and further integrating Azure DNS with your applications and services to enhance performance and reliability.